2 weeks, but last time I had a 4coder Friday, we started the lister API, and I have this big long to-do list of unchecked bubbles. See my little to-do list format? A bubble followed by the to-do item. See this? See this? Do you see all these? See all these bubbles? So I'm going to be starting on this stuff today, which is the stuff regarding the new lister API. And I have some other stuff that I made notes about on that stream, but we're putting that off. This is going to be a very big build. It's going to include the new dynamic variables, the lister API, an abstraction for footer panels. It's going to have a bunch of new commands that use the lister API in a bunch of different ways. It's going to have a refactored, you know, the little exclamation mark thing that shows up here. Well, if you go and look at the handmade network form, you'll see that it's just a wash in problems. So I'm just going to add a failsafe that diffs the file whenever it thinks that it's different to actually see if it's different, which is what it should have. You can't rely on the operating system to give you file change notifications. It's only 2018. We're not, this isn't Star Trek. We're not Starfleet here. We can't write stuff that just works. Flying Solomon says, I have a hopefully small feature request that I think will not take too long. Set command input. Please describe. Gary Johansson asks, is a write-up on the lister API's intentions also on the forums? There is on my blog an original idea of what the lister API would do, but it's evolved quite a bit. So I'm going to make a new blog post probably today explaining how the lister API has evolved since my original intention. Basically what happened was I sat down to make a hack of the lister API, and as I was trying to figure out how to make it general enough to handle a few different list types, like 4coder has the switch buffer, which is just a list of strings and you type something in and it narrows down, but it also has wildcarding, right? Then it has open file, which now you can see like the list of strings doesn't use this whole string to narrow down. It uses everything after that, like slash to narrow down, and it also does, you know, wildcarding. So that's different. And then that's the two major listing types, but then there's also like if I go to auto indent and I make some changes and then I try to kill this file, it makes a list of things you could choose as your like options that it's giving you. So those were the three main types of lists that I discovered that I had in 4coder, and they're not all quite the same, and it wasn't obvious how I could generalize them except in just one single sort of flat API that's supposed to work without kind of digging deeper. And as I dug deeper, I ended up discovering an API that's so general but so easy to implement. I think it'll be so easy to get this working that it sort of became bigger than just a lister API, and it solved a long-standing problem that I wasn't sure how I was going to solve in 4coder, which is how I could let the user fully specify UIs like tables and things in a way that I would be comfortable with. So the goal is these button things here that are used in the right now they're only used when you're going through the font stuff. All these buttons are gonna that's just gonna be gone. These like boxes here will be kept as a type of thing you can submit. So this will be treated as a type of list. This will be converted into a list that just looks like this. And this view will be removed because it's very hard to use anyway. It sucks pretty bad. So this is going to go away. And that will mean that literally all of the UI can be controlled from the custom layer, which will let me kill so much core code that it will probably make 4coder smaller than it's been in like a year, which I'm excited about. Alright. Alright, what is the exclamation point on top of the title in the title bar? That just says that the file in the operating system was changed by a program other than 4coder, and so your version of that is out of sync. Your version of that file is out of sync with the file you originally loaded. Alright, Flying Solomon explains his question. Alright, you can get command input in the API, which is awesome, but you can't set it to something else, for example in the macro system. So you're stuck with emulating all the commands that use get command input instead of just setting it to something before calling them. Oh, That's not a bad idea. A counterpart to get command input. It's not a command. It's like an API feature. Makes sense. Insubat says Coyote holding a barbecue at his computer. You know what? I might actually I'm gonna steal that. Okay. Okay. So I've said hello to everyone on the chat. Let's get started. So, everything still builds from where we left it. I want to go to I think it was in base commands where I set up this. This is basically my Snuffleupagus style. I wrote all the code that would use the API and wrote literally none of the code that would support the API. Boop. Okay. So I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I want to review this code before I do anything else. View start UI mode. So we don't have any of that nonsense. All that doesn't exist. List control add item. Yeah. Alright, I don't like some of these names, so let me try this. This is going to be a UI control. 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 There we go, none of this exists. UI control add item. If highlighted item equals 0 equals item. Alright, just fixing some naming stuff here. Doopa-doopa-doo. View start UI mode, view set UI. User input, get user input. UI item, activated item equals 0. UI control get mouse hit. Activated item does not equal 0. View end UI mode. Okay, so there we go. This is officially no longer a lister API. It is now a UI API. A GUI API. The UI API, User Interface Application Programming Interface. I was so amused by the idea of the double interface there that I had the riff on it until I found the best delivery of that joke. Alright, moving on. We want to go over here and look at API implementation. Love those question marks. Didn't put a date down when I first created this file, and now I can't remember. So view set setting split proportion cursor scroll mark highlight buffer view set variable. There we go. API export. So let's see, void view start UI mode application links app. Actually, I'll probably return a int32t application links app view summary view not implemented. View start UI mode. There we go. View start UI mode. View set UI control. Do I put list anywhere else? By the way, that should be control list. Okay, perfect. Not loving this theme. Didn't I last time create a new theme? Midnight. Yes, the new theme. I'm gonna actually put this into my 4coder files right now so that I can use it, because I liked it quite a bit last time. Themes theme slash midnight dot 4coder. Alright, close you, close you. Alright, bear with me for a minute. I just need to get 4coder to restart. So, group, wait, build all, save everything please. Boop, boop. Midnight. There we go. Alright, continuing with getting this stuff up and running. Alright, so that's a type. I want to get all the procedures in at once, and then I'll go back and do the type. So view set UI. Okay, API implementation, view set UI, view start UI mode, view set UI, API export. I'll probably want to return a bool from this to indicate whether or not it came through correctly. View summary view. UI control not implemented. View and UI mode. View and UI mode. View summary view not implemented. Alright, I think this is good. I'm not actually sure that I like this API, so I'm not shipping this yet until I run an experiment. But I'm putting that off for now because it's not really relevant to the specification of the UI. The set UI would work, it's just this part that maybe wants to change. Alright, so all that will work except that these types don't exist. Right. So, let's now go to here, boop, types, Hadoop, view, I don't know, something about views. Give me something about views. Null view summary. Why is that still a thing? Get out of here. Query bar. At some point I'd like to stop. Yeah, we're gonna have to kill the query bar, which is gonna kill so much stuff. I don't know. That'll be a 4.1 type change, I guess. Low on water already. I must not have filled up before I started. Whoops. Okay. So, well, I'm not going to put a doc on this yet. I want to do a pass for documentation later. So this is a UI control. UI item. Yeah, so what we'll do is we're just going to do this like so. There's a UI item first, UI item last, int 32 t count. That'll be our UI control, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. So over here I was saying, I am adding one item at a time. Interesting. Wow, Insobot with the insights. Books can also disable the monkey, just takes a while. Oh shoot, I lost the coyote one. That's alright, you all quoted it, so I can just grab it, plus it's still in the chat anyway. Okay, where are we going with this? I'm having a little bit of an issue thinking about this memory management question right now. Because if I'm going to later be doing things like just giving it a point and having it give me the control that it hit, what I really want is actually a little different from what I've built so far. I want a separate thing that is the UI list. Looks like this. And then the UI item can have a next and previous built in, right? And then what'll happen is This will be a UI list. Then, once we've done that, what we can do is say, actually need to do this. UI control equals UI list to UI control, pass in the list, and I probably also will pass in a scratch arena, and then we'll just keep that control around. Well, when do we end temp? Right there. Okay, perfect. So that's nice and good. That's nice and good. And there's some neat stuff we could do there to get fancy. So, yeah, I like that. That's not a bad idea. I wonder if I should talk to Insofar As and see what it would take. I think it would take more than I want to do to mess around with that as I start iterating through the probable requirements. Unless you just locally cache an Instabot database thing, like I don't know how he's storing the like Markov model data. Alright. I don't understand why this is a problem. Identifier view set UI. Why is view set UI becoming an issue? View set UI sig. It's got to be the UI control that it's upset about. So let me do this. So this becomes a UI item. Damn, this is one of those bullshits. Honestly, that's not a bad idea. I could take I could talk to Insofar As and work on adapting the Insobot Markov system to make a much smarter, like, word complete type thing that would select the options of word completion from like Insobot's like top, 5 picks for completion based on the Markov model, plus a little bit of correction based on the first characters you've typed. Ooh. If you kept the footer panel down at the bottom all the time, like this, but not for building a separate one, instead of having like the Visual Studio thing where stuff pops up, it could at any given time say, here's what I would fill in if you hit tab right now. So like normally you go like foo tab and it finishes something, right? But what if it was even when you haven't started typing something, it says if you hit tab now, this is what I will insert. And so you could just like start typing and go, oh, that's what I want. You hit tab, it fills it in, and then it's like, oh, arrow, that's what I want. arrow. Oh, that X. Yeah, that's what I want. Tab. And you just can keep hitting tab as long as it's suggesting the thing you want. Except that normally what you do is you use tab to cycle through things. So you would want some way to go tab and then like select. So like tab, keep, and then separate tab, keep. I wouldn't put it in the status bar because I like to hide the status bar. I mean, you could make the custom layer set up to put it in the status bar, but I wouldn't want to do that for myself. So, here's what I'm concerned about next. Actually, there's two different things going through my brain simultaneously. I don't want to parallel process them. So, one thing at a time here. I don't want these next and previous pointers forever. I don't need them when I turn it into a single thing like this. If I just did items count, right? That's fine, except these pointers don't actually need to be copied. What makes this annoying is that I'm allocating the item by pushing that there. So I have it just on an arena already. If I didn't put next and previous there, what would I do? I would put next and previous in a different node and have that node point back to the item, which would slow things down even more when we try to compile this into a single list. I could keep the same set of parameters in sync manually. I could make a thing like this and then put this in here, except now you have to type fix whenever you want to get to one of the members that you actually care about. I could make the list of members a macro that you can put into both of these. I could use inheritance. I could just put up with having 16 bytes wasted in this array for every item. Not a fan of that. I could... What else? I feel like my favorite version is this. So, this is what we're going to do. Item fixed. Yeah, I'm a fan of the current autocomplete. I'm thinking of not replacing it so much as if I had like a HUD footer panel, which is something I've been thinking about ever since I started working on generalizing footer panels so that you can just create them whenever. If I had a HUD footer panel that was standard in 4coder that you could pull up that would just show stuff, I was wondering if maybe I would have it constantly be showing an autocomplete, so you don't have to. So I could make a different kind of autocomplete than what there is. So then I think the rest of the thing I need to do is come over here, and things like type, etc. need to go into here. And then all of this is going to have to be fixed dot blah blah blah. And young Luna, yes, there is autocomplete built into 4coder. It's just word based. It's not like IntelliSense, so it doesn't know that item rect has a Y1. I can't hit tab and get that. But if I type a Y and go like that, eventually it gets to the 1. So it's just a string matching across the code base. Oops, wrong integer name. And it still doesn't know about UI control. Okay, so I've pretty much fully described this now. Alright, now let's go track down this nonsense. Why do you not like the ViewSet UI? You have UI control, right? That and this are both spelled the same way, right? Yeah. Okay, so you don't like it for reasons I'm not understanding. Oh, it says ViewSet UI right there. I see. I see. Let's go to the API implementation, view set UI, set view summary. Ah, shit. I think I'm just going to embrace using strings everywhere. Oh, so in the types header, the types header is special. Oops, not this one. The types header is special because every type in here gets exported to the documentation. So, these are all the types that were found. Uh-oh, that's a bug. Why does it call this app? Why does that not have the parenthesis? 1 second. Yikes. There's definitely a bug there in the parser, just discovered, but point is, besides this, where I guess the function type def doesn't quite work right, the bigger point is that it's supposed to be like just annotates those types for inclusion in the docs. Add item, list UI to UI control, UI control get mouse hit fixed.user data. Okay, so now we just need these helper functions, and then we have completely created the types, and we've stubbed out the procedures. So let me come over here, and it's going to be 4coder UI helpers.cpp. For coder UI helper.cpp. Helpers for UI data structures. Okay, we're going to go to include helper. Let's see, I'll put this something like right here, maybe actually up here. For coder UI helper.cpp. Alright, now we just find those procedures we don't have, and we will define them up. So add item, void UI list, UI item, not implemented. Ugh, I don't have that. Okay, you know what? I'll just leave it like that then. UI list to UI control. UI list arena. Oh wait, that's a partition in this code base. And there we go. Static UI item, activated item. It's a bit wonky right there. I'm not sure I like that. I'm not sure what else I would do. I mean, I could just return the user data, and the user data can be a pointer back to whatever it needs to be a pointer back to if the user wants it to get them back to the other thing. But if they wanted to get that back, they wanted to get them back to the other thing and get them to some other thing, then they have a problem. So that's why I don't like that. No, I'll keep it this way. It's wonky, but it's fully correct in the senses that I care about. UI control. Jason Bourne. I am doing good. Welcome to chat. Activated item equals highlighted item fixed. See, that's the part I don't like. So there's a couple of ways I can make this thing better. Get rid of this whole item/item fixed thing. I think we're going to make some changes to that so that the user never has to use two different versions of the item struct at this level. Because I'm thinking about it now and I just don't like it. So let's get this all compiling, and then alright, so we have the new code compiling. So now I'm going to break it again to get better API, but before I do, quick break for me to fill up my water, because it is hot. Okay, hope you enjoyed looking at IntoBot's little quotes here. Now I can get back to this. So I don't like this whole item/item fixed thing. I also don't like the user having to use an item that they allocate and then taking these next prev pointers and just ignoring them. So what we're going to do is that's going to be the item. That's going to be the item node. The user will only ever touch the item, and the way we'll make this work is you won't do this, you'll do this item. So all of these occurrences of item arrow are now wrong, and then we say there we go, and highlighted item equals 0. Then what we're going to do is we're going to say that we can take a UI item item putter and set that there. Again, we're just gonna take a slight change in perspective on how that works. There we go. The other thing we'll have to do is now we have to pass the scratch into this. Like that. Get user input. Blah 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 blah. Highlighted item, activated item equals, yep, UI get control, or UI control get mouse hit, that's what I meant to say. And then this will look like this. And it's also going to take an arena. Right, all this item.fix dot can just become item dot. And there we go. Okay, so that's a much nicer looking setup, and it will let us build something loosely, as in we can like push these strings on to the arena haphazardly and then interleave nodes and strings and all this good stuff. And then that means I should probably check that out real quick. And then yeah, it doesn't align. Okay. And then I can bake that down into a single pre-processed control data structure right here that I submit. Alternatively, I mean, I might just want the idea of converting the list of loosely constructed things to a tight data structure to happen on the core side, because the core has to keep a copy of whatever I send to it. Perhaps it just wants to build it in its own memory and then return to me a handle. Okay, so the only problem with this is it's implying that whoever builds this UI data structure internally isn't necessarily a view, and that multiple views could then use the same handle, which I guess isn't strictly a problem, but it would never actually be possible because you have to... Well, no, it's all relative to the corner of the view, so maybe. Let me think. This would let me say, here's the UI I want, and then display it in these two views, and then it would build once in some sort of UI structure, data structure keeping system that we would build internally, and then both views would be just holding a handle to the same UI for rendering purposes, basically. Except they can't both be the same if the mouse data is supposed to control who gets highlighted, although that's just a matter of if you're using the same UI in two places, It's on you to actually make that work, and if it's not going to work, you might as well be using two separate ones, but you could. It's going to create more work for me to implement if I separate it out, but not that much more work. It might be cleaner long term to separate it this way. And then there's the question of if I create a UI and then I associate it to a view and then I'm done with that UI, do I have to free it? Because that's what it's seeming like. It seems like I'm going to have to free the UI when I'm not using it anymore. Because when I first create it, I keep a handle to it, so it's got 0 views referencing it. Then I have one view look at it, and then later that view is going to look at something else. The thing it was looking at needs to be free at some point. So part of the advantage of saying that you just set the UI and you give it the list and have it return the baked thing to you is it gets to build the baked thing once and return to you the handle to the baked thing, and then you can use that handle. But then this is also going to mean that anything you ever do that wants to inspect that data has to go through an API. Whereas if the user controls this entirely, the baking process, then they can keep it on their own arena, they can query the data however they want, and the internal and external data format doesn't have to line up so that the user can have a data format that is more convenient to them for the purposes of querying things like mouse position, clicks and whatnot. Okay, we're going to keep it this way. Which means there's an extra copy happening for now, where you build once loosely, then you bake it down, and then you submit the baked thing, and that gets copied into the internal memory. But of the view, or of the application, the 4coder core memory gets a new version of the control data for the UI. And every view just has one slot where it can store its current UI. It doesn't have a pointer to a UI thing that has its own lifetime, which is probably for the best. The only disadvantages are now if two UIs did need the same UI, or if two views did need the same UI, they would just have to store twice as much memory. And when we set up a UI, we do an extra copy. So we spend more time setting up a UI than we would have to if we let the core do the baking process. I don't really like giving the user direct access to memory that is a pointer into the application. I don't think I'd do that anywhere else. So at some point, if the user side is going to do any queries, they have to own the data. If I don't, then I end up with an API explosion where any query that any user ever wants has to be implemented in the API on the core side. Of course, they have the original data. They could just pre-process it themselves in whatever way they want to build their own query accelerating structure separately without me even having to know about it. So that if you wanted to know, hey, where did this click hit, you could just build a structure that the core doesn't know anything about. That now involves baking twice, so it involves having two accelerating structures, and it involves baking twice, whereas this probably involves baking once and then copying. What's the advantage, again, I think this is the right way to do it. Okay. Alright, so yeah, so I think we're good. Alright, so that's a little brainstorm session. Um, ugh. Alright, so we basically have the three helpers. Implement three UI helpers. 1, 2, 3. Implement 3 UI API calls. 1, 2, 3. That's our life next. Alright, some of these are easy and some are a pain. So this is going to take that node equals push an array onto the arena, grab a node. Why is this even a pointer? That's going to make things worse. Item, one node. Alright, that node's fixed is just a copy of the item, and it's otherwise list first, list last node. Alright, and the list count will want to be incremented by 1, and then we can return node fixed, a pointer to node fixed. That way we end up with a pointer to something that's sitting in the memory with the right lifetime. Okay. Okay, UI list to UI control. So I'm passing in an arena and a list, and I'm building this UI control data structure. So what I need is UI control dot. This is a pretty easy bake. I'm not doing anything fancy in the current plan. So I'm just going to push UI item list count. Item node equals list first, node does not equal 0, node equals node next, int 32, no, that's actually even easier, control dot items, control dot count, plus plus equals node fixed. We copy all those and return it there. So now we get a nice streamlined, serialized array of all of the items, which will make all of the processing that happens afterwards hopefully better. This might be a mistake, I don't know. If it is, then what I could do is just fix it later by turning this into a linked list. So the list to control is just an option. I could just turn it off by making this be a copy of this, and just, having literally no work here. Just set the control equal to the members of the list, and return that. The whole list has to remain in memory anyway, basically. So, yeah, that would work. And then if I think that this was a mistake, that I'm doing extra work and not getting as much benefit as I need, I can navigate to a different setup with no pre-processing, or with better pre-processing, whatever it needs to be. Then here, not sure why we're passing in that as a pointer. Maybe it'll get big enough that it's worth it. I don't know. But the point is, now what we want to do is we want to do an iteration over the members Alright, as we're going, what we're probably going to want to do is actually start from the back and iterate backwards. So that the first thing we find that fits is the one we keep. If now this is a rectangle point hit test, I'm not sure if like any of that, what is it under compounds, under math, rect hit check, yeah, so all this shit is not even available because this code base fucking rocks. So I'll just manually do it. Let's get the rect. If r.x0 is less than or equal to x, and x is less than r.x1, and r.y1 is less than or equal to my, and my is less than r.y1. Then the hit item equals the item, and we can break. Alternatively, we could just say return item, and then down here say return 0, and then we don't need that. Okay. So there we go. That's those three. Check, check, check. Now let's pull up the API implementation. And this is where things always get non-trivial, is implementing this layer. Because now, to implement this, we're going to have to implement the internal stuff that powers some of this. We won't have to get all of it at once, but we want to get some of it going. So let's focus on start UI mode, end UI mode for now, because set UI is the hardest one, because it'll involve nonsense and things. So the ultimate goal is that this will replace the current system where we have like these interactive actions and we have the view UI set up. So right now we have basically none, theme, and interactive are the options, and we're going to try to get rid of these by the end. So we're going to build the API to just work correctly as if these don't exist. In fact, I think we're going to just say let's do it. Let's kill all the code that does anything when that code is around. Scroll context. mode. Okay, I'm going to find out if that ever gets used. Everything I'm if zeroing out will eventually get deleted when we get this done. That's why it's an exciting project. We're going to get to delete so much code, although we'll probably end up writing more code that replaces it than what we end up deleting. I don't know. The whole GUI system will go, which will be good. GUI system is gonna die. GUI system is gonna die. Get scroll Y. So this is just gonna become this. Yep, this is some really deep changes we're making here actually. Probably the last time I'll make a big change on 4coder that gets released this year. Because after this, the next biggest thing I'm going to do is going to be so big that it's going to take me like a year to get it ready. Basically, my rule is right now I'm assuming showing UI is always equal to VUI none, so or VUI none. So whatever I see something like this, I just say, okay, we're assuming this is always true now, so just always do that. So that begins that, so you'll just say we'll implement that again later. Interactive view complete will just be completely demolished. Okay, step view is going to get pretty wrecked, so let's take this a little bit slowly here. If we're not doing that, well, we're always doing that, so that's not an option. Yeah, the biggest problem here is that if I completely eliminate the GUI entirely, the actual thing that displays files is even based on that. So I'm gonna have to recreate everything in there without it. That's too far. I'm not going that far. So we're gonna recover this. And we're gonna recover, let's see, this. Oops, no, that's backwards. We're gonna recover all of that. So now I want to track down all the spots where I messed with stuff like this. Hold on, let me track down the rest of these. That's fine, that's fine. That's fine, that's fine. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Whoops, did not mean to do that. Close this, please. Reload the project. And so now the next thing is all of this can go because we're just always doing this one thing here. All other VUI modes are removed. In case you're wondering how many lines of code that is, it's about 700, 650, 660. All of these will get completely replaced in the custom layer. So I'll finally be able to get them out of the core, which has been a long time coming. I still don't know why save is still in here. I think after this build and maybe 2 more builds after that, I'll be able to completely eliminate all of the internal commands that ever existed. That'll let me clean up some more stuff. Color tweaker, you can go away. Flying Solomon is giving me some big surprise faces right now. I can't tell what exact thing I say leads to the surprise face, or if it's just like an accumulation of extraordinary surprise. So what is this? Yeah, so we'll want to get this back, but for now we'll take it out. Cool. Yeah, yeah. It is exciting when you get to delete this much stuff. Like, I didn't realize exactly how much was happening here, but a large part of the blow of the core is because it's supporting a whole UI system that is just janktastic. Without it, the core will get much leaner. And then when I can eliminate the internal commands entirely, it'll make us a little bit leaner too. Basically, I guess what I'm going to go for here is we're going to try to get to the end of 4.0 with this current feature set basically there, a few other things that we can get by moving stuff to the custom layer, but no major changes to what it feels like to run 4coder. 4.1 will be a big change in terms of, like, I think when you look at 4.1 versus 4.0, you'll immediately be like, this is a different world now. Like, 4coder is going to be kind of different in the next big change. I'm gonna go nutty, but this is kind of a monumentous moment, getting all this blowed out finally. It took me, honestly, a part of the thing that's been kind of holding 4coder up, I feel like, for the last year is that I wasn't sure how I was going to solve all this. And on the last stream, I just sort of sat down and started hacking something together that I didn't know would lead to this. I didn't know it was going to go this far. I just started thinking this was going to be like a little lister hack, and then now I can clear out my entire GUI system pretty soon. Look at all this. All this code here. 1,100 lines. Literally all of that's going to go. 171 lines. All of that's going to go soon. We're going to get rid of all of it. Not necessarily today, but soon. Before this build ships. Alright, I'm pretty sure that that won't work because that was just like a ridiculous amount of removing stuff. So let's take a look. I obviously won't be able to do much with 4coder because I can't open up lists anymore. But maybe I'll still be able to type into the scratch buffer. Just gonna quickly check while we wait for Visual Studio. See if there's any questions on the network, on Twitter. Boop. 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 Alright, nothing over here. Ah, hello, you. So I'm gonna take a quick moment to get rid of a bunch of shit. There we go. What is this? Who is this? Dismiss all. Like, get out of here. And now what I want to do is I'm gonna drag this over to this side. Whole new world here. I've discovered at work that it's actually way better for me if I put this stuff on the left, because then your code can be aligned closer to the center of the view, like of the monitor, whereas instead, normally you're like looking all the way to the left to read the code, and then all the way to the right to get these things. Now, yes, the boxes here are all the way to the left, but the code is center stage where you really need it, and so I've gotten quite accustomed to laying it out this way. Jackson Banan says, I'm really late, but not really, because 1 hour in, out of probably 6 or 7 hours of stream, has you on time for the majority of what's going to happen today. Although I guess we're more than an hour in. We're an hour 19. Alright, you know what? Unacceptable tardiness. Okay, moving on. What we want to do is run. Okay, cool, so that's working. Before I do anything else, let me fix this one too. Bloop. Bleep. Foo boy. Control O does nothing. That still works. And bingo. Okay, so everything works except for UI stuff, which is nutty. I don't even know. So, now that that's done, the next step is we can look at this API and get it right. So what's crazy is now I've just forced myself. If I leave all that stuff in, I can't ship 4coder until I re-implement every single thing I just deleted in the custom side. So there's a lot of work for us to do. This is going to take a while. So no more chit chat. Time to just get to work. So what we're going to want is a UI mode counter, and what'll happen is over here, first of all, we need to get the relevant view pointer, and then what we're going to do is say, okay, the view pointer's command or UI mode counter gets incremented by 1, and we return the result. Over here, this is the same thing, except what we want to do is say, well, all of these are going to first do UI mode counter equals clamp bottom 0 UI mode counter. And then this is going to do if vputter UI mode counter is greater than 0. And all of this is also going to be dependent on if vputter does not equal 0, it can do all this. Otherwise, it will just return 0. Similarly, if vputter does not equal 0, do all of this. Otherwise, do that. Okay. So, oh yeah, Jackson Banan, I started pretty late. I was until like 1:30 maybe when I got on stream. Yeah, 1:30. So that's why you didn't miss much. Late day for me. But if it's greater than 0, do that. Else return 0. So there we go. So that's all those do is they let, I think that's how I want it to work, which is you can just start UI mode and it becomes like a counter. So if you start a UI mode and you make a call that also starts UI mode, then it's just you're both responsible for ending it until you get back to not being in UI mode. Packetless, yeah. 4coder is on Linux and Mac now, so it's I'm trying to go wide on the platform. Someday I'm gonna do where's my oh there it is. Someday I'm gonna get it on this Raspberry Pi too. But not quite ready to mess around with that yet. That's a little bit more of novelty than serious thing, but it would be pretty neat to know that 4coder is robust enough to run on a Pi. Alright, so what's the next thing to do? So I got 2 of these done. Check, check. Those are the easy ones though. Those all they're doing is doing this counter thing. The other thing we have to do with this counter now is whenever I said that showing UI is always just treat it as if it's always, oh, this, by the way, this never became a problem. Scroll context just literally doesn't need this. Even if we kept the UI stuff, that was just unnecessary garbage. Well, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it was used in something that we zeroed out. So I will leave it there, but I'm probably just going to delete all this code before the end of the day. So I'm going to mark it up as deleted. So look at how much nice and tighter, how much nicer and tighter this struct will be once I get rid of all that. Plus, I'm going to be able to get rid of all of this nonsense before this is done too. I might not be able to get rid of GUI scroll bars, but that'll just get replaced with a simpler scroll system But even that, actually, I might not need, because I think edit position has the real scroll system, and this might be just nonsense. I think all of this will go, and the only thing we'll need is this, because the GUI system is just, it's being sent to a farm up north, where old code goes to have a better life. Where it will be free to run in the fields with other outdated code systems. Okay, yeah, none of that's a problem. So, roop. No, that's not going to help. Roop. There we go. Nope. Okay, so here's where it starts becoming a thing. If view transient dot UI mode counter equals 0, do that. Boop. Okay, so we can actually bring this back now, except it's going to look like this. And that will get changed later. Transient dot. Transient dot. There we go. Whoops, that was a... I need to drink some water. That was a horrible snap. There we go. Yep. Technically what I'm supposed to do is keep this one around doing the old nonsense just for a little while longer. You never know if you're going to want to back out all your craziness from earlier in the day. Maybe this was a huge mistake. Alright, here we go. Boop. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. Next. Next. Alright, what is all of this? I don't think I want to keep that. So what that does is that's the thing that whenever you press escape ends the UI mode. I mean, I could keep that as a built-in rule that UI mode is automatically ended when you press escape, no matter how deep into UI mode you were. But the problem is that's gonna really screw everything up. The users who write UIs now, user code who writes a UI, will now have to manually check and see if their UI mode has been prematurely ended and exit their loops and or whatever else they're doing. And that could be really bad. So I think that really it's going to fall to the users to maintain the rule that you can always escape your UIs. You just gotta, I don't know. I'm handing control over to the users, and it's up to them to not fuck up the editor. So this is permanently gone. Okay, so this part here can look like this. So if that is equal to 0, we do this work, else not implemented. To do actually, this is like to do nothing because step view is stupid. We just have to render because we have wisened up. Okay. But I'm not sure, so double check. There we go, perfect. Alright, what's this one? View gets scroll Y. Okay, right, so I didn't put it in braces this time, but it's the same thing. So this is now if that, else v equals view transient.gui scroll.scroll y. Okay. Next. Change all them damn access flags. They're all poorly named. Everything is named like it was named by me when I was an idiot. So, like, you know, a couple days ago or something. Okay. View show file. So this is basically, yeah, I don't know if I like, we're not going to do that. Why not decide when to switch active elements depending on the results from the input given to the current active element? Hello, by the way. Don't know what you mean. Oh, Demenis asks, how do you cycle through the results in iSearch using the default key bindings in 4coder? You're talking about like this panel over here where I am like stepping through like this. So, first of all, as soon as you do a search, you're locked onto that search buffer. You can only have one search buffer locked at a time. So if you do another search buffer like a compilation that has errors, it will become the locked one, and this one will not be locked. So you can only step through the locked one. So if it becomes unlocked, what you can do is click on it wherever you want to jump to. Click on the one you want to jump to, and press enter. Once you're locked on, Alt-N and Alt-Shift-N takes you up and down through the list. Now, if you mean iSearch bot as in incremental search, which is probably what you mean, then yeah, up, down, also page up and page down work, and left and right. No, left and right don't work. Page up and page down, up, down. Sorry for totally not understanding what you meant. Yep, that's going away. So this is if that's equals 0, and there we go. So now we've spammed that out everywhere where it's supposed to go, and we still build, but there's no way to test any of it because we don't have any commands that actually increment the mode counter that we've bound yet. But we're getting close to being able to do that, so let's see if I can make an assert trigger, shall I? Shall we? But first we have to deal with this. Demenis asks, are bindings only available in the custom layer? Yeah, there's not a lot you can do to customize like key bindings right now without access to the custom layer. The goal is to someday get off of that system so that you can rebind keys however you want, like without having to go through custom code. But right now you can't really do that. The only option is that there's a couple of built-in maps. They're all pretty much identical except that like they're for different like Mac. If you're on Mac and it's a problem, then you can switch to the Mac mode, but that should happen by default, I think. So basically, short answer is yeah, there's not really anything for that right now yet. I'm working on an identical system that will hot load from a custom text file. You're talking about bindings? You're going to hot load your bindings from a text file? It's pretty cool. Why would you do command:key though? Feels like it should be key:command. Am I wrong? Okay, well, I mean, it's irrelevant. It specifies the exact same amount of information. It's just my brain doesn't think of them as being assigned in that order. That suggests to me that you're setting a key to a command rather than a command to a key. Kind of like assignment, I guess, right? If A equals B, this is the target and this is the source. So in my head, the key is the target and the command is the source, and that's why I look at that and go, what are you talking about? But that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, that has a nice advantage that you have a nice list of the commands that you're using, and then the keys are just extra information attached, which is probably a more useful way to think about what set of commands you have available than seeing the keys and then, like, your commands over to the side. So what do we want to do for ViewSetUI? Anyone know? I feel like no one taught me how I was going to make this part work. Ah, it's for multiple keys on the same command. Interesting. Good point. So here's the next big question, which is what? What? Alright, I think we're going to do this in the simplest way I can imagine to do it, which is yeah, I could see that being annoying. I didn't think of that. I didn't think of that. With this new UI system, I'll probably even go a step further and just make, well, I'm probably going to, let me put it this way, I'm probably going to do something, I probably won't use the system you're setting up for Fidelski, but I probably will set up a command binding, like, config file before I finish the 40x stuff so that people who don't have the custom layer can rebind keys at least. But and that'll probably use a config file like my existing config parsing stuff. But I'll probably also just make using this lister API thing a UI for editing that too, which will be a thing that like reads in your config text file, you edit it in the UI, and then you can save it, and that just serializes back or stringizes back out to the text file, so that you don't even have to bother to edit the text if you don't like to. You can just click around, and it'll be like somehow give you the ability to search for a command, which we'll already have built, and a bunch of other stuff. It's going to be a project. Let me put it that way. Alright, view set UI. Although that might be farther than I can actually go. I don't know. I think we could get a very basic command editor, like binding editor UI setup, but that'd be about as far as this UI system can go before I need to go to 4.1x to do stuff like the meta buffer stuff that I have planned and other things. So, view set UI, general memory free if it's there, and then what we're going to do is vputter transient.ui control.count equals control count if is greater than 0, else equals 0 equals general memory allocate boop, there it is, UI item general memory size of a UI item times the count mem copy into the items from the control items the memory size. Right, nothing works correctly in this code base. Forgot. There we go. It's crazy. I've spent so much time now like developing stylistic stuff that I do in my projects that 4coder is like the most outside of my current style out of all the things I work on, which makes it the most frustrating sometimes, which is why I'm excited to get 4.0x done and do a full-on half rewrite. Alright, so now we should be able to get this assert to trigger, which is the one I wanted to trigger in the first place. Now that this is set up to work correctly. So let me actually check that off. That is done. The next point is we need to be able to render items. And guess what? Once we can render items, the API is technically done. And all that's left to do is literally all of the work it takes to build several layers on top of the API that I've exposed to do all the various UI replacements that we want to do. Plus I have to do the nonsense for the theme blocks that isn't in the API yet. That'll be very easy. It's just a different type that isn't there yet. No, a half-on rewrite would be like a different thing than a full-on half rewrite. I mean, it depends if it's a half-on full rewrite. A half-on full rewrite versus a full-on half rewrite, you don't want to necessarily hear one and assume the other, because not necessarily the same thing. I don't believe. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea what I'm talking about. There it is. Okay. Broop. Oh, this won't work because I don't have right. Okay. Broop. Let's go back to base commands real quick. There's our dude. Interactive switch buffer. Bloop. Alright, so there. That one. Boop. There we go. Badoop. Badoop. And ta-da! I can hit this assert. My UI mode counter is 1, so it won't show me this, and so it goes down here, etc., etc., da 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 da. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to stop doing this. We're going to delete this code, and we're going to just figure out how to render. Okay. Okay, so that's just irrelevant because we're not using the GUI system to actually drive any of this. And you know, before we go any farther, I think we've made enough progress to make myself convinced that we're gonna delete all of this. It might be too soon to delete it because I still need to have a reference for how to get the scrolling stuff to work later. Yeah, some of the scrolling stuff is inside the code we're going to delete. See right this? Hack. UI sucks. Now just forcing it to not have the bug where it clicks buttons behind the header buttons before the scrollable section. So this is a note we'll finally be able to remove once I delete everything. In this. See all this? Look at all this code. This is all GUI related nonsense that we're not even ready to delete yet. 1100 to 1345. So there's another 245 lines that we're gonna completely scrap in this build. I mean, this is definitely a half-on-half rewrite right now. Maybe a half-on 1-quarter rewrite. Dieter asks, will you include some basic network capability in the rewrite, like online presentation mode buffer? No. I'm not planning to do any networking in the core. It should get to the point where any networking you wanted to do could be implemented in the custom layer, but I'm not gonna invest in that right now. I'm not saying that networking is off the table. I might someday make a 4coder extension / plugin / whatever that can do networking, but I'm not going to build it into the core, and I'm not going to do it anytime soon. if I did do any networking, the main reason I would the biggest thing I would set it up for is to have it so that you could have one application like a game or something send textual data to your editor, and then you could edit it and send it back to the game to edit things live in a sort of piped way that maybe would go through a socket instead of through a pipe, just so that it could be remote or not. Yeah, a lot of things are kind of doable in a horrible way, and my goal is to make everything doable in a nice way on the custom layer before I do anything with it. It's fancy like that. Okay, so what we're trying to figure out is here it's updating. We don't want that. Where's the render stuff? Render file view. Okay. Okay, so the way this works is everything gets rendered by the GUI system. So I think it's... Ugh. This is crazy. This is crazy talk. I think it's time to get rid of all the GUI shit. I think that that's what this has come to. Like, all of this is going away. Yeah. If I get the file working again without the GUI stuff, then I can rewrite this without GUI stuff. Okay. God, where do I even start? Oh, I don't even know. I don't even know. This is so complicated. Full hatchet mode? God, a lot of this is complicated. Begin scroll. So the only things I really care about are scrollable, so the 4 of these, and file. None of fixed option, checkbox, none of that. GUI.com color button, button file option, style preview, all of these. I think actually just these, maybe? I'm not sure. Will be replaced in the custom layer, so I don't care about those. I care about this code here. So yeah, I don't even know at what level to put this. At least this high up, right? Scroll vars gets updated here. Oh boy. We're getting ourselves involved in a massive undertaking. I think before I do this, I need to cut the stream off, take a quick moment to clear my head, and when I get back, I think we're going after the GUI system for reals this time. All this GUI, all the stuff that runs the GUI system that we're hatcheting out, it's got to go and it's got to be replaced. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do when I come back. See you guys in a bit. Wait, let me read the chat real quick before I go. Alright, yep, nothing new to chat about on there, just chat's just wrapping up the conversation about the networking stuff. Alright, I will be back.